Good evening. My name is Doug Powers, and I'm coming to you off-center from my incredibly jank recording studio. I have with me today the box to an AMD motherboard, a poker set, and a necklace, all working together to secure my phone in place, which is attached to a USB dongle with a headset on it, so that you don't have to hear me through my crappy phone microphone. All this so I can discuss Chapter 5. So Chapter 5 goes into detail about a couple of different networking solutions. One in particular, domain networks, I actually have a little bit of experience. I can't really say studying, but I got some experience observing it in my professional life. You see, I work in a big box retail chain, and as often is the case in these retail chains, I was sent to another location to cover for an employee who was out sick at a time. While in that store, rather than asking for assistance when logging into the store computer, I decided to just go for it. And I used what seemed like a mold for a generic login, which is user and then your store number. And then I put in the password, which I guessed might have been standardized, which is, yeah, you thought I was going to give out company secrets on camera, didn't you? Not today. But I was right. That password was in fact standardized. Not so much to my surprise, I logged into the system successfully and did not need to ask the on-site manager for any assistance in doing my job, as the computer's quite necessary to what I do. Following this, I kind of assumed that the computers would have been centralized then if the login information was standardized. So, logically, I tried logging into my own store, and it worked. Briefly. After a few seconds, I was booted back to the secure login screen. I assume this is to keep troublemakers out, such as competing stores or disgruntled former employees. So, I would like to do a little bit more research into it, actually. Well, testing, I should say. With a bunch of social media outlets available to employees, it wouldn't be too difficult to contact an employee at, say, the other end of the country to see if they could log into my store. Because I have a theory that I would like to be tested. That theory being each district is on its own domain. This kind of springs from the fact that the password has a very seemingly random number at the end of it, but it's a relatively small number, like it could be indicating a position. Of course, I could just be completely thinking out in the dark, but it's an interesting thought experiment. Worst case scenario, I get fired for trying to break into other stores' locations because I don't know how corporate would respond to me soliciting that kind of protocol break. But I digress. The point is, I discovered that the store is on a domain network, which makes a lot of sense for a business, seeing as domains allow for centrally managed networks, essentially, or user accounts. This means that each store computer, I'm not sure if it's on the computer level or the store level. Again, that needs more experimentation on my part to find out, or I could just ask somebody, but that's the boring way of doing it. But each account is able to access this domain independently with a set number of credentials, which is likely how they were able to tell that I was logging in from the wrong store and boot me back to the secure boot menu. Um, like I said, it makes a lot of sense to have a domain controlling all of this, because using a domain, you could lock out a system that you may know to be compromised, say a store is being robbed, or an employee is using it to cause the company damage, so on and so on. The other kind of network that is discussed in Chapter 5 would be a peer-to-peer network, which, much like the name kind of implies, it's simply two or more computers directly communicating with each other, with one of them acting as a host. The big difference between these, domain being more mass management, a peer-to-peer is more independent management. It allows for a small number of users to directly connect to each other for a substantially cheaper investment. This allows for much of the same file sharing and so on and so forth that you would get in a domain without the centralized control. So you essentially have less versatility, but less investment required. This makes peer-to-peer networks more popular with single offices, something that may be a less successful franchise or just smaller. Also very popular with video games, as the volatile nature of entertainment means that no game is really going to be around forever. Some aren't even around for that long to begin with, and they're usually connecting a small list of members for a short period of time. This makes it much more economical to use a peer-to-peer network over servers, though some games still use servers. The vast majority of them will use a peer-to-peer connection. The vast majority of users in both cases don't really consider this, though. In the end of the day, just trying to do a job, right? But ultimately, though, networking has been, to me, one of the most interesting parts of this course, just because it's so easy to observe, just looking around in the things that we interact with just about every day.